I'm Polly Schmidt, an early achievers coach with Child Care Resources in King Pierce County. This is the first of 6 group learning experiences focused on interrupting expulsions. We will delve into challenging behavior in this part to start the conversation. The current information on expulsions in preschool is staggering, and it is one of the catalysts for these group learning experiences. Our goal is to keep children and families in early learning programs, to promote consistent care and maximize opportunities for child development and learning. In Washington State, our licensing WACs and the Early Achievers Program address the need to provide quality early learning for young children to make sure all children enter school ready to learn. But when we become aware of the reality of expelling preschool-age children, an alarm should be going off. Preschoolers are expelled at 3 times the rate of K through 12th graders nationally. Washington State experiences higher rates of preschool expulsion than the national average. Preschool-age boys are 4 times as likely to be expelled as girls are, and Black children are expelled twice as often as Latino and white children, and 5 times as often as Asian American children are. Keep in mind, we are talking about children who have only been on this earth 3 to 5 years. The outcomes of expulsion include increased stress and adverse experiences. For preschool children who are expelled, they are 10 times more likely to drop out of school, to experience academic failure, and face future incarceration. We all know how it is important for children to have access to quality early learning and care. So how does it make sense to routinely exclude children from those quality experiences? During this session, we will be talking about children in our care whom we consider to be challenging. We will be looking at how we respond to them and begin to understand how perceptions drive our reactions. So let's get our brains ready to think about the children we interact with. What do you think of as being challenging behavior? Take a second to get that idea clearly in your thoughts. There are many words to describe the kind of behavior we define as challenging. One of the dictionary definitions of challenging is pretty simple, requiring much time, effort, or careful attention. From a research point of view, we can think of this definition as any repeated pattern of behavior or perception of behavior that interferes with or is at risk of interfering with optimal learning or engagement in pro-social interactions with peers and adults. Simply put, challenging behavior is behavior that demands teacher attention, gets in the way of learning, or prevents getting along with other children. Let's make this a little more specific so we have a clear picture of what we are going to be talking about. Who is the child who is most challenging for you? Now that you've pictured the child, describe the behaviors that you find challenging. Is there just one thing, or is it a combination of behaviors that you think of as challenging? Specifically, what is it about that behavior that is challenging for you? And what do you do when that behavior shows up? Do you immediately call out to the child? Do you rush over? What actions do you take at that moment? We're going to dig even deeper, stretching your honest thinking. What is that one thing, the one behavior you know is going to get to you? Is it a tone of voice or a particular word or an action? Think about your physical response and your emotional response. This is more than keeping children safe or stopping aggressive behavior. What deeper feeling is triggered when that hot button is pushed? Does your heart begin to beat faster? Do you feel your face get red? Is it anger or frustration or fear? What is the best way to describe it? This is something to think about. What is it about that hot button behavior that triggers a strong reaction? Let's look at a scenario in a classroom that might sound familiar. For the third time this morning, JT ran through the room, kicking down the tower 2 children were building in the block area and toppling the magnet tiles children were using in the toy area. What child did you picture as you read that scenario? And what was your reaction? If I gave you more information and told you this child is a girl, Jill, what reaction do you have? Or if I told you the child is a white boy, does your reaction change? There are other components we could clarify in this scenario that would further define the challenging behavior. You are probably familiar with the ABCs of behavior. All behavior is communication. What does the child's behavior in the scenario above communicate? If the child is trying to get your attention, would the behavior in the scenario work? There are many reasons why children want attention. Maybe they are the youngest of 5 siblings in a home where both parents work long hours, or perhaps the child has just been excluded from playing with a group of children in the preschool room. I'm sure you can think of other reasons a child would want attention. Children use avoidance behavior to escape from something that they don't want to do, like cleanup. In the case of access, the child behaves in order to get a desired item or to participate in a favored activity. They're trying to get access to something. And finally, stimulation. The behavior might feel good to the child. It's important to remember that it is the running or crashing that feels good in our scenario, not the outcome of destruction. When you think about a child whose learning style is active or kinesthetic, this might make sense. How does your response to the behavior change when you know they are communicating a need? Would you be more likely to move away from reacting to a trigger and move toward responding with care and curiosity? When we are triggered by a child's behavior and are in the habit of reacting, we judge the behavior as negative or bad or wrong. We approach the behavior highly charged emotionally, and we tend to be agitated. On the other hand, think about how you interact with children on a regular day, maybe during free choice time or work time. You might help a child who is having trouble with a puzzle, and your conversation would focus on problem solving with them. Or you might join children who are playing with magnet tiles and ask questions that extend their thinking about how the materials work. In these examples, you are responding to children with empathy or understanding. You are curious and you are thoughtful about what you say. In the end, our perception of the child is influenced by what we think. When an adult repeatedly identifies a particular child as challenging, a pattern emerges in interactions with that child. This is important because it impacts the pathway to expulsion. As you will see in the next few sections, perceiving a child as having challenging behavior, coupled with a perception that the family is not collaborative, builds the road to expulsion. You will be going a little deeper into perceptions of behavior in Part 2, Implicit Bias.